What up, family? Who that to you? Welcome to the show. Big Q and the guys coming at you. This is a special feature that we're doing, breaking down each position group throughout the Saints team, and we had an opportunity to kind of look at each position groups as it stands. And as you notice right now, as free agency starts to kind of teeter down, it'll still be ongoing, but the fact that it won't be as active as it's been over the last several months. The position groups for the New Orleans Saints are pretty much being come into fold, and that's just the same with a lot of position groups. Now the Saints then begin to filter in certain veteran players very meticulously, methodically, and very intelligently, in my opinion, picking up key free agents, guys like Ty Montgomery, Chiquillo, and the rest of these guys, Hurst. Very interesting and very solid role players that will play a serious role in the Saints going into the future. But in this particular show, we'll cover and talk about the position classes, and we'll have a series of position classes going throughout for the next several months. The first class we're going to break down here will be the wide receiver group. I think it's one of the deepest groups to consider here. And the fact that the Saints actually released one of the wide receivers from the wide receiver group as a corresponding move for the addition of offensive lineman James Hurst. The corresponding move was the team then cut undrafted wide receiver Tim White. So he's no longer on the team. So, all right, now this is the unofficial depth chart provided by one of my favorite online resources, which is ourlads.com. And we start off with the position group as the wide receivers. Now, if you look at this area right here, it covers the wide receivers group here and from here. So pretty much you look at it, Mike Thomas, obviously Mike Thomas, we know he is the single season best receiver in the game. He considers, will he be able to continue doing what he's doing? Last year, the Saints were kind of a mutated version of the offense that we loved from years past, where Drew Brees would spread the ball around to different wide receivers that was wide open. Our wide receivers last year wasn't as talented as years prior, but the Saints overcompensated with Michael Thomas, Jared Cook, and Elvin Kamara, as Drew Brees then fanned the ball between those special targets. Mike Thomas was the most competent of all those guys. He made it work. He was very excellent in that. He caught and did everything he was supposed to do. In my account, he is the best wide receiver in the NFL. But the kind of production that Mike Thomas continually does, and I expect with his mentality, his work ethic, the fact that he rarely misses any games, he should be able to really capture that title coming to. Because of Julio Jones and guys like that, who doesn't have the sticking power of him, and Julio's been hurt a lot. But Mike Thomas, I anticipate him to still have a solid season. Nothing like what he had last year when he was able to just literally tear up the receiving record books for single season. But it's other really talented people there as well that will have to eat. Emmanuel Sanders was brought in on a 2-year deal, $16 million. And he is a solid veteran option, a perfect complement, very talented wide receiver. A lot of deep playoff experience, which I think helps Mike Thomas, because that's the area I think the Saints team need to work on going forward because of our drastic and very sad playoff losings over the last several seasons. Emmanuel Sanders helped there. He provides the perfect complement to Mike Thomas. He can play inside and out. He's a talented wide receiver, still has some speed, but he's very reliable with his hands. Very, very savvy wide receiver. I love what he does. Plus his mentorship, I think he'll help Mike Thomas take his game to another level, as well as young wide receiver situated behind him. Now, when you then go behind him, the other best wide receiver I was saying the Saints currently have is another all-pro wide receiver by the name of Deonte Harris. Deonte Harris is another fantastic weapon for the Saints that's there. All-pro kick return, punt return man. His speed is undeniable. Very talented, tough, smart wide receiver. I anticipate a guy like Deonte Harris getting more opportunities in the Saints offense. When a lot of people say, well, Q, Drew can't throw the ball like he used to. I don't expect Drew to throw the ball 10 times, a deep ball 10 times a game. I think it'll be a little bit smarter than that. But remember, Drew Brees understands and knows that he has diminishing arm strength, and he does work on his arm strength off season. It's not just something that once you realize it's gone, it's gone. There are actually exercises that they do during the off season to help power their arm, to continue to help them to push the ball up the field. We do recognize this, right? We do recognize this. So we understand that Drew can't throw the ball consistently down the field, but taking shots 2 or 3 times a game, I see absolutely no issue with that. Now, behind those three, Mike Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and Deonte Harris, gets a little murky because the wide receiver depth is kind of up and down. Now, outside of that, this is no particular order, but Austin Carr is the next guy that you look at on the Saints roster. Austin's been in the league for multiple years. Austin is he's very intelligent, has a high football IQ. The coaches love and like him a lot. Him and Drew Brees, the coach Sean Payton and Drew Brees likes Austin Carr a lot. He's really intelligent. A pretty solid option at the slot wide receiver position, to be quite honest with you. Injuries have gotten in his way, but hopefully Austin Carr can remain healthy. And remember, he does have an ability and a skill, if you will, to make the team. And I've been telling people that for the last several seasons, that Austin Carr, he finds a way on the roster. That's just an ability that he has because he's well liked and trusted. Plus, he does anything he got to do in terms of playing special teams, playing in the slot where it's incredibly difficult. But Austin Carr could be the X factor there. A lot of people saying, "Q, you crazy," but was I crazy last year when I told your ass that? Anyway, let's keep it going. The next few people that Nick mentioned on the list, and Maurice Harris, 6'2", just under 200 pounds, a veteran wide receiver, been in the league for 3 or 4 years. He's a guy that's really interesting to me because the Saints picked him up late in the year last year. And remember, usually when the Saints pick up wide receivers late in the year, like in that September, December range, and then take those guys and kind of stash them, that raised my eyes because they found several really talented wide receivers that way over years doing it that way. And Maurice Harris could be that guy. He's fast, he has good size, and he can catch the ball. He just hadn't had an opportunity to display his abilities for a team. And I think Maurice Harris is an X factor right there. I'm telling you, 6'2", has great speed, he's a young veteran who's been in game action. Plus, he plays special teams as well, kick return, punt return as well. So Sean Payton loves tall wide receivers with speed who can catch. Maurice Harris could be intriguing. He could be the X factor. Other wide receivers, Krishawn Hogan, who the Saints brung on during the season, just placed him right on the active roster. And he caught one catch before he ultimately hit the IR, but doing a lot of blocking. A lot of people found that as a very mysterious move that they did bring Krishawn Hogan onto the team. And to my opinion, Krishawn Hogan's an interesting player, but I just don't know if he sticks and stays. He could be on the back end of it. He could have a difficult time making the team as well. We'll just have to see how he performs in camp. LaJordan Humphrey is another favorite guy. He was a favorite last year when he actually made it to the active roster, played a handful of games, and was active in a handful of games when Teddy Bridgewater took over the helm of the quarterback. They thought that LaJordan Humphrey and Teddy Bridgewater could work together during the season like they did in the preseason when he helped him make a name for himself. Now, LaJordan's a big physical wide receiver, doesn't have a lot of speed, but his gift is yards after the catch. You throw LaJordan Humphrey the ball, he will shake you, and you will have a difficult time bringing LaJordan Humphrey down. That's just keeping it real with you, and I'm just being honest with you. That's what end up happening when you have a guy like LaJordan Humphrey. And a lot of people likes him a lot. We'll see if he can stick and stay, but I think he does stick and stay to some capacity, even if they practice squad him again. Emmanuel Butler, who's a guy who was tearing up last year's, tearing it up, looking real good. Then when he got into the actual game, the preseason games, he didn't do anything. He fizzled. He had the Brandon Coleman effect. So, I mean, hopefully Emmanuel Butler, who was very highly productive at Northern Arizona, could find an opportunity or a way on the field because he got a case of the dropsies, maybe the lights, the bright lights of him and seeing him and seeing that he had the size and all that. And just we'll see if he can capture that magic that he had last year. Then the other guys, Tommy Lee Lewis, who's coming back, is a guy that can play special teams. Sean Payton was told by his mentor, Bill Parcells, about Tommy Lee Lewis, who's back on the team after having a short stay with the Detroit Lions, who ultimately released him. He's looked upon as a long shot as well, despite the fact that Tommy Lee does have experience in the Saints playbook. Now getting into the undrafted guys, because I haven't forgot the undrafted guys of this year. Two guys the Saints brought in of the 13 undrafted drafted class of players they did after the draft this year. Marquez Callaway, the young wide receiver out of Tennessee, 6'2", 200-plus pounds. Very physical wide receiver, does have the speed, doesn't have burner speed, but can get away from you. But what I like about Marquez Callaway is the fact that he's a guy that high points the ball really well, but he high points it while steadily being contested. He makes a habit of catching really tough passes, cornerbacks draped all over him. And if you watch a lot of Cass Callaway's footage, you can see him running routes. He need to work on his route running a little better, breaking it down and whatnot, but he'll learn those nuances once he gets to the Saints. Curtis Johnson, who's a fantastic wide receiver coach, would then help him with that. But Callaway is a special talent. He is very intriguing, and he plays special teams, and I think that's a part of when you're a undrafted guy at a very deep position. You're going to have to play multiple positions on the team. Now, he plays wide receiver. He can also be a kick returner and punt return as well. He did that very well for the Tennessee Volunteers last year. So we'll see how that shakes. Now, the other and the last of the wide receiver class is Juwan Johnson, the big physical Oregon wide receiver who's very physical, who is a red zone weapon for you. Now, he had a case of the drop season. He has to work on that, but he runs pretty decent routes. He's physical, and it's a tough thing to bring those guys down. So the two undrafted guys of this year, Callaway and Juwan Johnson, is very intriguing. So that's the wide receiver group for this year, heading into training camp, into the mini camps, etc., and all this kind of stuff. It'll be interesting to see who breaks forward. But out of the three wide receivers who we know, Thomas, Sanders, and Harris, who do you think has the best opportunity to make or take the last 2 or 3 remaining spots, depending on what the Saints do there? What happens there? Is there another guy among the group who you think that could possibly be? Also, not to mention the fact that we have a utility players that we can sprinkle in that. We could sprinkle Taysom Hill in there, because Taysom Hill will more than likely be the third wide receiver, the slot man. You'll see Taysom Hill in the slot a lot, even though he's not listed as a wide receiver in the wide receiver group. But we might as well put him there, because he'll play a lot at wide receiver in the wide receiver group this year. He will be your third wide receiver out there in many cases when he's not doing the run plays, or when he's not subbing for the quarterback to throw the deep passes and all this kind of old stuff. Taysom Hill will definitely be the guy that's operating in the third slot. So that does impact the rest of these guys making the team as well. And perhaps Tommy Stevens does too, because he can play. You can use him at the tight end as a wide receiver. This is a different thing. So 7th-round draft pick Tommy Stevens does also factor in there as well, because I don't see him being practice squad, because there are teams that want this guy. If you practice squad him, Carolina will take him off the practice squad. Remember, that's how the rule goes. I'm excited to see what kind of competition it's going to bring, and we'll just have to watch. So the question to you and your homework is, who do you see behind the top 3, Thomas, Sanders, and Harris, making the team at the wide receiver group? There's a lot of options, but if the Saints keep 2, let's say they keep 3 positions beyond Thomas, Harris, and Sanders, who are the 3 guys that make that jump? Who make the jump? Who stays on the team? What are your thoughts on that? But anyway, thank you for joining us today on the Sports Coma TSC report, breaking down the wide receivers group, part 1. We'll be back with part 2, looking at the quarterbacks. That'll be the next part. So thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe, like, share, and join the Great Saints Think Tank YouTube channel and Facebook groups. Links in the description section below. Check out the merch. Who that to you?
Perfect.